Good afternoon. I'm Earl Butch Graves Jr., President and CEO of Black Enterprise, and it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome you to our first Women of Power Tech virtual conference hosted by our good friends at Ally Financial. I thank Ally for helping us meet the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic to mount this exclusive, first-class virtual conference for professional women of color in tech. Most of all, I want to thank all of you, our participants, for making the commitment to join us for our latest edition to the Women of Power franchise. Some of you are looking to break into the tech space as professionals or entrepreneurs, while others are industry veterans seeking to advance your careers and fortify your power by embracing today's rapidly changing landscape. We introduce our event in a year of milestones and challenges. 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of Black Enterprise, where we have chronicled the historic achievements of African American entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and wealth builders. At the same time, it has also been a year like no other, with the twin pandemics of COVID-19, which has devastated lives and the economy, and systemic racism that has given birth to a level of social activism to halt discrimination in society and our workplace. As such, BE remains steadfast in our mission to promote excellence and empowerment to propel us all forward, even as we face such crises. Against this backdrop, we realize that tech serves as a transformative force today and tomorrow when it comes to jobs, wealth, opportunities. Black women must continue to engage and demand a more expansive role in shaping the future. For us at Black Enterprise, the Women of Power Tech Conference is both a celebration of your abilities and a vehicle for Black women to come together, draw strength from sisterhood, and transform adversity into victory. To that end, we have brought together a powerhouse slate of speakers, including top executives, innovative entrepreneurs, and forward-thinking experts on trends and emerging careers. We guarantee the Women of Power Tech Conference will be a complete and rewarding experience. We extend our appreciation to all our sponsors for making this unique event possible. And once again, we thank you for being a part of it. Now it's time for this man to exit and turn things over to the women of power who will inform and inspire you throughout our conference, beginning with an important message from our host sponsor, Ally Financial, and their representative, Technology Director, Rochelle Streeter. She joins us to share what it means to do it right, utilizing technology and then introducing our opening conversation that counts. Welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you, Butch. On behalf of my 9100 teammates at Ally Financial, I want to express how thrilled we are to help bring you Black Enterprises Women of Power Tech. My name is Rochelle Streeter, and I'm a leader in our technology department. I'm responsible for Ally's enterprise risk governance platform. Ally is a leading digital financial services company that offers consumer and commercial banking products, including auto finance and insurance products, home and personal loans, online investing, and wealth management. We pioneered the era of digital banking as an online-only bank with no branches. We use technology to simplify the lives of our customers while being an ally for their financial well-being. We stay relentlessly focused on our customers and operate with a simple philosophy of do it right in every situation and customer experience. This do it right philosophy extends to the way we look at diversity and inclusion. We live this by coming together, not shying away from hard conversations, and celebrating our differences. In response to the recent racial injustices, Ally hosted a series of Let's Talk About It discussions. These sessions allowed employees to share the impact of racism in our lives. All employees were encouraged to attend. I was so proud and encouraged to see my colleagues and executive leaders, including our CEO, listening and learning from each other. I've also been proud to serve as a mentor for the Allies Mobile in the Making program with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund and the Sean Anderson Foundation. The program offers opportunities for historically Black college and university students to gain entrepreneurial skills, business and IT experience. I was blown away by the ideas the participating students had as a mentor. Last year, 15 students joined as interns and 6 have joined Ally in full-time positions. The 2020 Moguls in the Making program will take place virtually in October. Today, we are participating in Women of Power Tech to help us bring more women who look like us to the Ally team and continue to learn about the challenges women of color face in IT. I'm proud to work at Ally, and I believe in the steps our organization is taking to make our company reflect the makeup of the world around us. Thank you for joining us today. I'll turn it over to Caroline Clarke, who will introduce our first speaker.
Welcome to the very first session of Women of Power Tech. We couldn't kick off with a more impactful and exciting guest. Bozoma Saint John is a name you know, and for good reason. She is good people, and she gives great business. Bozoma has been a leader in the C-suite in tech for some time, which is exceptional for any woman. We know this, but for a Black woman, it is unbelievably rare, too rare. We're going to get down with Boz today. I don't want to take up her time to unpack everything that she's been doing, which includes up to the minute she's barely 2 months into her new gig as Chief Marketing Officer at Netflix, a brand that we have loved, especially during the pandemic. Boz, welcome to Women of Power Tech. It's always great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much, Caroline. I am very, very excited to be here. As you know, I've had a long history with Women of Power, so anytime you call, I'm here. So I'm so blessed. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know, you shouldn't have said that. I'm called all the time. But you know, it's interesting, Boz, because when we first met, when you first came into the Women of Power orbit, you were at Pepsi. This was pre your sort of negotiating the deal to have Beyonce at the Super Bowl and everything sort of taking off and taking you into a whole new stratosphere. You made a big transition after Pepsi. You moved your family west to LA for this job with Beats Apple, heading up marketing there. And then before you knew it, you were part of the real Apple family, because at first it was just Beats, right? So you've made a number of transitions over the last 5 years, and many of them, most of them really have been in tech, which is so exceptionally rare. Can you talk about transitions? Have you mastered them? And what do you need to have in place to make a transition successfully?
Ooh, well, that's a heavy one, coming right out the gate with that one, Caroline. Thank
Listen,
you.
it's pandemic, girl. You got to be ready.
Gotta be ready. Gotta be ready. Well, you're right. I think my head is still spinning a little bit since, as you said, this new position is very, very, very brand new at Netflix, heading up marketing there. But yes, you're right. I haven't been new to the tech spaces, given what we birthed at Beats with Beats Music, which was then acquired by Apple. And after the acquisition, we sunset Beats Music and built Apple Music, for which I also headed up marketing there before I transitioned to the chief brand officer at Uber. So my trips around the big people in Silicon Valley has been varied, and I would not say that transitions are ever easy. You know, somebody asked me once why it is that I keep moving from company to company, and isn't it bad for my career? And I looked at them so quizzically, as you can imagine. It wasn't a Black woman who asked me that question, and I looked at them and I said, "Don't you think that I would rather have the 25 years or 30 years at a company that felt like home and retire with the gold watch or whatever in the hell it is they give you when you retire after decades of work?" But no, that is not, unfortunately, the reality for most Black women. I have learned, and I learned it very early, that I need to promote myself, which was both literal and figurative. In that I had to be able to figure out what was going to work for me, what I needed to do in order to advance and to grow, because sometimes I couldn't find those opportunities in the jobs that I was in or in the companies I was in. So it really became up to me. I couldn't really wait for anybody to see my work. I had to show them my work, and then I had to make real active moves to then get the recognition for the work that I was doing.
So when you've made these moves, and it's really interesting that you talk about the frequency. Over the last few years, it's been a couple of years. It was just 2 years at Endeavor, almost to the day, right? And then you made the move to Netflix. So when you're looking to make those transitions, what is the signal to you that it's time to go? And what do you have to have in place to feel secure about making that transition, which, presumably is going to be difficult anyway? But what do you need to have in place to make it work for you? And what signals to you it's time to go?
Yeah, it's such a difficult question, because I feel like it's so nuanced. It really does change. This is maybe going to sound like a non-answer and maybe not a real mathematical one or a tech one that's appropriate. It's really more emotional than that. It feels to me that I need to move. And I said, it's not technical. It is really my gut and my instinct. I have learned to trust it. Really, really, really trust it. A lot of times I feel like we know something is happening, or something is not right. You know that feeling that something ain't right. It's just not sitting right with you. But we try to explain it away. We excuse it away. We say, oh, but only if this happens, and oh, only if that happened, or maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that. But the feeling doesn't leave, and your situation doesn't change. And so I've just learned that at the first inkling of that, I start looking around, I start paying attention. And for me, that has meant that sometimes it is because I am not being given the opportunities that I know I'm ready for. That next promotion, or that next bit of power or control over a budget, or something shifts in the way that I'm valued. I know I have to leave, because there's no success there for me if I stay.
I think what's going to be surprising to people listening is, when you are in that rarefied air and you're already operating at a C-suite level, the shifts aren't, they're not as significant. They're not that many places to go. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the specificity of what is included, even when your title is Chief XYZ, right? Yeah. But talk about the chief title, because I know that I've heard you tell this story many times of how your name, Bozoma, comes from your paternal grandmother, right? Who was the fourth wife of a chief in a coastal village in Ghana.
Mhm.
And I think it's beautiful when you talk about, how in a few generations, Bozoma, the name has moved from wife of a chief to a chief, right? A chief marketing officer. So that title, all of those C-suite titles, particularly in tech,
Mm.
are so difficult for Black women. To date, we've still only had one Black woman head a Fortune 500 company. So talk about what that title means and what you think Black women in particular have to do to position themselves to get there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. The family history, it still makes me a little emotional, when I think about it. I think for all of us, when you think about where our mothers have been, what they were doing, what they have done, and then where we are, it is enough to make you weep, both in gratitude, in some sort of relief, and also in anger, that it is taking us this amount of time to be able to even slightly achieve what it is that they hoped and aspired for. I think about that almost every day, that yes, my paternal grandmother was the wife of a chief and now I am a chief. That brings me sometimes to wailing because the burden of that and the pressure of that is so significant. And I know that I want my daughter to be a chief, in any capacity that she wants to be. I don't want us to roll backwards. And so it means that even today, as I sit in this seat, whether it is in one boardroom or another, I have to recognize the importance and the gravity which I have to hold the office. It used to make me upset that I had to carry what felt like the responsibility or the reputation of every Black woman on my shoulders. It felt like it was so unfair, that I could look at my white male counterparts and they were acting on their own. It reminds me of like, sometimes on Twitter bios when you see people write like the views are my own. And
Yes.
I look at that sometimes in jealousy and think, but these views, you don't see them as my own. You see them as the views of a Black woman who represents every Black woman that has ever existed in the history of humankind.
Yeah.
And that responsibility turned into real pride for me, because I then understood that it wasn't a burden, that this is a real gift. This is a privilege. And that for me, I have the responsibility of then continuing to hold the door open, that the pressure of excelling, of doing well, and not well by their standards, but well by my own, well by the reputation that I need to uphold, which actually doesn't match up with anybody else's reputation, because I've heard it all. I've heard the reviews and the comments, which are like, oh, well, a chief doesn't behave that way. Really now? How does a chief behave? Because I promise you, you haven't seen a chief like me before. And so I want to make sure that we have room, that there are ways for us to be that aren't necessarily subscribed to what somebody else has dictated. And so what does that look like? And it makes me bolder. It makes me truly unapologetic. When we throw that word around so much, but it is hard. It is hard to be unapologetic in rooms in which people are judging you for being different. And so for me, it's this responsibility I feel for all of us, that maybe they can try to stop one of us, but they can't stop all of us. And so if we would put down the mask, if we would truly be unapologetic in our Blackness, in our femininity, in whatever way that is, there's not one subscribed way to be either of those, by the way. As Spike Lee said, we're not one monolithic group. And so I do believe that there's an opportunity for all of us to stand up together and yell from the rooftops. And I realize that is much easier said than done, but believe me, I am doing it. And I would like the rest of us to continue doing it, to push, not to subscribe to what has been told to us that we're supposed to look like and behave like, but to really be who we are and therefore make room for others when it's their turn.
You talk about the difficulty of standing up and owning who you are in these rooms where there's only one of you. And in tech, that's certainly the case, right? If you're lucky, there's one of you. If there's one of us. In most rooms, there's none of us. And for an industry that, proclaims all of its disruption and boldness, when it comes to diversity, and particularly when it comes to hiring Black female talent and then making us feel a sense of inclusion and empowerment where we can succeed in tech, it just has not been there, right? So can you talk a bit about your specific experience in tech and how perhaps it compares, you know, to your career before getting here? Thank goodness you were seasoned coming into tech, right? Because you brought the value of all of that experience of your years prior in marketing and advertising. But for those who are coming in, you know, fresh out of school, or for those who don't have, you know, the validation that may come from success in some other industries, or who do, but for whom tech is just an entirely different, you know, ecosystem. How difficult have you found it to hold that door open for Black women? And do you sense that changing?
Yeah, you know, I really, it's such a tough one, you know, because these rooms, they simply aren't built for us, you know, and I know that we say that and we maybe say it so casually, but they really are not built for us. I mean, if you sit and think about that for a second, it is really daunting. You know, it's like trying to wear a garment that is 2 sizes too small or 4 sizes too big. I mean, don't you just flounder, you know, where it's so tight and constricting, you can't breathe? You know, that's how it feels, right?
But this is what's happening, right? Is that Black women in particular don't feel they can bring their whole selves to work. They don't feel they are seen or valued for who they are and what they contribute. And here you are, right, owning all that is you and bringing all of that into these spaces. And it seems to be working, but it's not working for a lot of others of us. Or we can't even bring the confidence to do it because everything about the space just feels so restricted.
Yeah, yeah. There's no easy answer. There really isn't. You know, I wish that I had like some, you know, magic bullet that could solve all of it. But I don't. What I have is my own experience, you know, and what I have seen and what I have done. And that's what I can really talk to. You know, and to the question about what happens in the rooms, you know, when you walk in, whether it is that you are fresh out of college or transitioning, you know, from a different career into tech, or that you are, you know, somewhere in the middle of your career in tech but feel stuck. You know, the oppression and the feeling is actually the same. You know, that for me, because I was coming from the world of CPG, you know, having had some success, of course, in marketing before entering the world of tech, it didn't actually give me a leg up. You know, I felt like people looked down on me for that and for so many other things. But because I didn't grow up in Silicon Valley, you know, it was kind of like that comment that like, oh, well, you know, you must not know what you're talking about because you aren't born of this world. You know, and I think that there are excuses for every single type that there is. You know, it's like you could have grown up in this space and people would say, oh, well, you know, you don't have any other experience. That's why you can't succeed here. You could be just coming out of college. Oh, well, you're too young. That's why you can't be in here. Oh, well, you're coming from a different space. That's why you can't be in here. Every excuse exists. And while there is, certainly I have complete arguments and thoughts about how the spaces themselves are responsible and need to change.
Yeah.
Advice that I have for us, you know, and for Black women in particular, is that we actually do have to own our unique ability and our unique experiences and tout them. I'm not kidding when I say that I celebrate. I mean, listen, if you follow me on Instagram, you already know, okay? I like to brag on myself. I do it constantly. And do you know how many people have told me to shut up about it? Every day somebody else is like, well, you know, you should be a little more humble. Why? For who? And why would I be humble about it? No one else is touting my accomplishments. If I don't say it myself, no one's going to say it. And you know what happens in those spaces? People talk about people they know. They talk about the things they've seen and heard. Well, if no one is talking about you, then how are they going to know? You know, and so for me, it became really simple and easy where I needed to get the, let's just call it fans, and the noise from outside to permeate the walls of Silicon Valley. You know, when I presented at the Apple keynote and presented Apple Music. First of all, that was not an easy choice or one that just came to me simply. But once I was on that stage, I knew that the audience I was talking to was not in the room. You know, I had to speak to the people outside, the people who were live streaming, the folks on Twitter and on Instagram who were watching. You know, those are the people I needed to talk to. And the noise that they brought is what actually changed the trajectory for me. You know, it was all of the mentions and retweets and the flooding they did in the comments about seeing a Black woman with her curly hair and pink tight dress on presenting tech. That's what changed it. You know, so for me, it continues to be about not necessarily trying to win the room, but trying to win the audience outside who's also going to tout your accomplishments. You know, so
when you said, I'm sorry to interrupt, when you said that was not an easy space to get in, you went after that spot to be on that stage?
Yes, absolutely.
And what was it that you wanted to get out of it? What was the strategy behind going after that?
Well, I mean, to me, it was quite simple. You know, all of the top executives at Apple were on that stage. You know, and we hadn't yet been there. And so when the opportunity presented itself and, you know, folks were talking about who was going to present Apple Music, of course, some of the choices were about the engineers or, you know, anyone else. I was definitely not in the conversation. And I did raise my hand and made all of the arguments as to why I should be given the chance to present. And then I had to actually present before I was given the job. And that meant that I, you know, of course, like most of us, you know, you over prepare, you know, make sure that you've got all the points and all the hits. And I'll tell you one thing, there was a piece of feedback given to me that almost derailed me. You know, the comment was that no one was going to look at the product on the screen, that they would only look at me because I was effusive and I used my hands and I was passionate about the product, and therefore they wouldn't look at it, and that was not the job. And it almost derailed me because I wanted to mute myself. You know, I thought, oh, I'm gonna miss out on this big opportunity because they haven't seen anyone like me before on the stage. No one has been like me before on the stage. And it took a lot to actually talk myself out of dimming myself. It took a lot. No one else did it, you know, and that again is maybe a lesson in it, right? Which is that what is the commentary that is going on in our own heads, you know, which is either tearing us down or building us up, you know, to have the confidence to continue moving in the space. And I just figured that, you know what, if I showed up on that stage and I was anything but myself, first of all, every Black woman would come for me. Because it'd be like, girl, that's not you, you know? But also like, what a shame, you know? And so I was just like, well, either I'm gonna get it as myself or I'm not gonna get it at all. And I would rather not get it at all then.
So let's try to pound through a couple of rapid fire tips, okay? I want like BOZ's tips for bulletproofing your ex, okay? So let's start out with negotiating, because I know you're not gonna verify what Netflix is paying you for the pleasure of your company. There's a number widely out there, $7 million. I know you're not going to say anything about it, but I know that being paid what you believe you are worth is something you go at with absolute vigor to the max, right? Yes. So give us your best tips for negotiating. What do Black women need to do to make sure 2-3 things that they get it right?
Yes. First, we have to do our research. We have to understand the market value. You know, we know what the numbers are for how much we're paid, cents on the dollar. But that means that we have to have proof. You know, I know we know it, and I know there are so many studies on it, but actually go in with proof. You know, what is the market average? If you can get numbers verified through others who are in similar positions, do that. Name them. This person is being paid this much for this job at this company. I would like the same. You know, we have to have the proof, and I know it's unfair and it doesn't feel right, but in this day and age, that's what we have to do in order to have the backup. Next, we have to actually be able to negotiate. And so if you're not able to negotiate for yourself, if you're not able to say the number without your voice shaking, which is okay, then you need to have a representative for you. And it's okay to do that. There are plenty of people who send in an attorney or send in a business manager, or send in someone else to do the talking for them. So employ someone. I think at this point, once we're talking about big numbers, you want to have somebody on your behalf who is doing that negotiating for you if you're not able to do it yourself, because you have to be able to stick the number. It's like, say it and don't blink, and then the reaction. And so those are the two biggest points that I have about negotiation, is knowing the market, getting the proof, and don't blink once you say the number.
Okay. Talk to me about finding your tribe. It's not easy to do in tech, right? So do you just go outside? How do you gather your well of support when the well is almost dry?
Oh gosh, I know that is such a difficult thing. But you know what? It's true that if you can't find it in tech, then you have to go outside. None of us can go at this alone. And so having people in your corner, even if they are not in tech, is better than none at all. Folks who can help advise you. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that they're advising you on the project. Sometimes it's just the cheerleading squad. The folks who are going to tell you how dope you are and how incredibly smart you are on the days when you don't feel it, or you come out of a meeting, or you come out of a review or something else and it just doesn't feel good. You need people who are going to build you up, and there's no one who does it better. No one can gas you like Black women can gas you. That's for sure. And so you have to have the tribe. I have mine, and some of them are not in tech at all. Some of them don't even do anything near what I do. But it's so important, because they're the ones who are going to remind me of my power and my essence, and making sure that I'm able to do what I do in this space and not bow down to anyone who doesn't understand it or doesn't get it.
Building a personal brand, which, listen, we're all bowing down. You are the master. But listen, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of strategy. So how do you build a personal brand and make sure that it is not hanging you up in your professional brand space?
Yeah. Caroline, this is a hard question, because I'm often surprised by when people want to create a personal brand based on somebody else's demo information. It's like you've chosen this ideal of what it means to be the person in the role. And then you try to match that up with who you are, whether on social media or in some sort of articles or podcasts, et cetera. But it doesn't make any sense. The personal brand has to be built on the person. And so it really is as simple as that. What are the unique qualities and, attributes that you have that you're bringing to the table? Turn those up. Simply just turn up the volume. Like I said, I think a lot of us have been told for so long that we should just put your head down and do the work and somebody will recognize you for it. I think the personal brand goes against every one of those things. And they also tell you to dress the part that you want. Well, if you're not in the part, or you're trying to dress for a part that wasn't written for you, you're going to fail. So the personal brand is really like hone in on the personal. What is it about you that makes you special? What is it about you that makes you so dope? And tell everyone. And therefore, that's the way that, you build the brand, and also give other people the tools to be able to brag on your behalf. I say that all the time too. It goes back to the tribe, right? It's like, if you have the group of people, tell them what you're doing, and give them permission to brag on your behalf.
Tech is a unique space, right? We've talked about how difficult it can be. Why has it been so important for you to build your career specifically in tech? You could be doing anything. Why tech for you?
Because it's uncharted for us. I sometimes feel like I'm in the wild, wild west, and there are some of us who feel that we can go out and explore, and feel like we can go out adventuring. And that is okay. If you don't feel like you can do that, that's all right. There are some who can. And so for those who can and who want to, it is important for us to go out and forage, and make sure that we're clearing the space and clearing the path. So for me, I feel at this point anyway in my career, and have felt it for quite some time, but specifically now, I really do feel like I'm in my full power, and perhaps I'm still getting there. Maybe I haven't even reached it yet. But I feel really, really strong. And so I want to be able to carry, like I said, the responsibility of this space and being able to clear it in a way that doesn't look like what anybody else has seen before. That way we don't have to continue to make the excuses to be who we are. And so if I can do it, I feel like anybody can.
Do you feel like you belong now?
That's
I
a
know you're new at
woo!
Netflix. I know you're new at
That's a
Netflix.
tough
So this
one.
is not specific to Netflix. It's a new job. But I mean,
Oh
in
yeah.
Silicon Valley, do you feel now? I know that you've staked a place, but do you feel like you belong?
No, I've never felt like I belonged. Never.
So what
I've
needs
always felt like
to
an outsider.
change? What needs to change for you to feel that and for other Black women to feel that? What does Silicon Valley need to do?
Yeah. You know what? That's also a really tough question because I want my daughter to belong. I don't know that I want to belong because if I belong, then I won't be fearless and I won't fight. I'll get too comfortable. And so I don't want to belong anywhere. I don't want to feel the comfortability of being embraced just yet. It's helped me to be able to be the warrior and the fighter to continue to push. And so for now, anyway, I'm quite all right with being the outsider.
Being the outsider is exhausting. It's tiring. And you were recently in the hospital. So, I never leave a Woman of Power interview without mentioning something about wellness. How do you steel yourself since you choose to continue to be in a position where you want to be all fight? How do you take care of yourself so you can do that? That's a tough road to choose, right?
Yeah, it is. And I don't know that there's one answer, for everyone, but for myself, it is a combination of knowing what it is that I can actually accept, getting better at saying the no, getting better at really identifying what is for me, without feeling the pressure of doing things because other people expect me to do it. That has been my recent self-care. And I mean, obviously there are other literal things like I do sleep. Contrary to popular belief, I do sleep. I do work out, because I want to take care of my body. I want to be conditioned for the long haul for sure. I do talk to my therapist and my girlfriends who allow me to share and be vulnerable, in spaces where otherwise I'm not vulnerable. And so all those things are practical. But the biggest of them has been psychological. This excusing myself and forgiving myself for not being everything that everybody wants me to be, because that can be probably more of the killer than anything. Trying to live up to somebody else's expectations can be so difficult. And that's probably at the center of what we're talking about, that there's this built up, platform for you, especially when you achieve any kind of success and people want to point to it and say, oh, well, she shouldn't be doing this or she shouldn't be doing that. Don't you think she should? And don't you think she should? And listening to that and feeling the pressure of having to succumb to that is just too much. And so I just simply have turned it off and I said, no. And so now when people want to saddle me with their expectations, and by the way, it comes from friends, not just foes, people who think they have their best, your best intentions at heart, and they probably do, will say things to you to make you feel like that's not the way you're supposed to be. And so learning to turn that off, learning to say no, sometimes audibly, and reminding people that what your expectations are not mine, has really been the gift for me in self-care and making sure that mentally I am as strong for myself as I need to be to continue the fight.
Well, saying no matters, but we're so glad you said yes to Women of Power Tech today. Thank you, BOZ.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I appreciate it. Thank you.
See you soon.
Ally believes in helping people achieve their financial dreams by supporting efforts that improve economic mobility for individuals, families, and communities. We accomplish this through our relationships with select organizations, event sponsorships, and volunteerism to support grassroots community efforts. We also recognize that a key component to success is education. That's why we offer many tools, resources, and support. To learn more, visit ally.com/social impact.